This couple never anticipated receiving the shock of their life a few months after they made the decision to adopt a young, skinny husky. One juvenile husky, subsequently named Wolfgar, didn't have the finest start in life back in 2015. He was abandoned by someone who didn't want him by the side of the road when he was a little puppy. Wolfgar was alone, frightened, and unsure of what to do. As a puppy, he was too young to know how to take care of himself, much less locate food or shelter. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. He had no notion how to live and was on his own. The dog did his best to take care of himself. He would hide in little passageways, scrounge for food in any bins he could find, and even approach passers-by on the street to beg for food. But it was never sufficient. Wolfgar, however, was a recluse who never gave anyone the chance to take care of him or rescue him from his predicament since he disliked approaching strangers. This implied that the longer the unfortunate dog remained on the streets, the worse his condition would get. Before his life changed one tragic day, the dog was left alone for a long time. The morning had begun as any other. As usual, Wolfgar was out on the streets, searching for food, when he was observed by a bystander. The state of the dog's condition was more of the reason the individual gave it another glance than the dog itself. From what the observer could see, the husky was quite thin and had very little fur on its body. The individual carefully and slowly approached the animal and called out to him, feeling deeply sad for the small puppy. After noticing the human, the dog watched the stranger and gently retreated. The dog did not flee right away, though, since he was really hungry. The individual hurried to a neighboring store and grabbed some meat after noticing that the poor pooch was timid but obviously in need of assistance. Then, thinking he was still there, they went back to the street where they had saw the dog. Fortunately, the dog hadn't gone very far, and he cautiously advanced a few paces when he saw the guy again. However, the animal started to drool a bit when it saw the meal in the person's hands. He hadn't eaten well in a long time and was quite hungry. The dog approached cautiously until he managed to steal a morsel of flesh off the human, allured by the mouth-watering aroma. The dog gained confidence and started contentedly eating from the person's hands after consuming the first slice. The considerate bystander looked to see whether the dog had identification while he was nearby. Maybe, the stranger hoped, the animal had just gotten out of his house and couldn't find his way back. The dog could then be given back to a devoted family who had been waiting for him. Unfortunately, such was not the case. The dog had absolutely no identifying on it. The stranger didn't think the animal, which had no collar, would have a microchip to find a home either. The individual decided to take the dog home with them after giving it all the food they had. Considering the state of the dog, they couldn't bear the idea of abandoning him on the streets. It would just be too mean. The individual made up their decision and started attempting to bring the dog into their vehicle. The stranger bought additional food from the small store and started luring the dog with it in an attempt to encourage it to follow them. Fortunately, the dog followed the food with joy because he was so hungry. After returning to the car, the stranger only needed to place the food in the trunk and observe the dog climbing up after it. The benevolent stranger then proceeded to take the puppy home after making sure it was safely in the back of the car. Despite their sympathy for the animal, they were aware that they still needed to exercise caution since the dog may bite if he felt frightened or confined. Fortunately, the considerate bystander managed to turn an extra length of rope into a leash. Surprisingly, the dog followed the human inside their house without seeming to mind the leash. Wolfgar was still quite shy after he was in the house. Curling up in the tiniest available area, he did just that. He made himself as tiny as possible, almost as if he wished to hide from the whole world. Unfortunately, the stranger who had discovered the dog was unable to retain him since they lacked the time and space necessary to care for the puppy until he recovered. They advertised that they had located a husky in need of a suitable home on social media, knowing that someone else would have to take the animal. Given that the puppy was quite ill and thin, they made it apparent that he would require a great deal of care and attention. One of the stranger's acquaintances got in touch with them shortly after the message was placed, expressing interest in the puppy. The pair, a husband and wife, already owned a husky and were animal lovers. Their hearts ached for the abandoned puppy when they saw the post about him. Having grown up with Huskies, the spouse was eager to meet the little boy. He found it incomprehensible that someone would leave an animal on the streets, much less a husky. It was among the worst things a person could do, in his opinion. The guy and his wife were eager to see the possible new family member after they consented to allow them meet the puppy. They met the stray dog on November 8, 2015, when they visited their friend's home. When the guy and his wife finally saw the puppy, they were furious with whoever had left him in such a state of neglect and felt terrible sympathy for him. The dog seemed apprehensive around the new strangers at first. He didn't know what to do because he wasn't used to so many people. Fortunately, the couple realized the dog needed time and space to adjust to them. They carefully waited while sitting close to the dog on the floor. A few minutes later, the dog cautiously approached the wife after some mild urging and even a small amount of food inducement. The pup sniffed at her and then let her pet him, his tail waving ever so slightly. The woman was ecstatic since it indicated that the dog was kind and may accompany them home. However, Wolfgar immediately retreated when the spouse attempted to pet him. The dog appeared to avoid the man at all costs, regardless of what he did. He seemed to have trouble around guys, which can be a sign of a negative encounter in his past. Was he mistreated in any way? Nevertheless, the pair was committed to helping the dog and would stop at nothing to restore his health and make him feel at ease among both men and women. The couple decided to bring the dog home with them after spending some more time with him. They were aware that the animal would most likely wind up in an animal shelter if they didn't accept him, where he could have to wait a long time for his forever family to come and find him. The couple named the dog Wolfgar, after the Icelandic character from Beowulf, once they brought him home. But when they arrived home, the couple realized how very ill their new puppy was. The dog's fur was falling out all over his body, and he was severely underweight. A scar that zigzagged over his ribcage suggested that he had also suffered a pretty horrific injury at some time in his life. The dog was probably healthy since the wound on his ribcage had healed, which was unfortunate, or perhaps fortuitous. But the pair didn't like the idea that this animal had experienced such a horrible event, perhaps alone himself. When the pair realized Wolfgar required medical help immediately, they hurried him to the veterinary clinic for an examination. The veterinarians immediately took the animal inside the clinic and started examining him after seeing how awful he looked. However, the veterinarians' findings were heartbreaking and shocking. The pair was informed by the veterinarians that Wolfgar was a staggering 29 pounds, 13 kilograms, underweight, weighing barely 39 pounds, 17 kilos. This indicated that the dog was seriously undernourished and in dire need of some wholesome food. Unfortunately, because of his extreme malnourishment, the dog would need to be placed on a special diet in order to retrain his stomach to eat regular meals. If he didn't, he may consume too much too quickly, which might lead to additional health issues. Additionally, Wolfgar was found to have a severe case of demodectic mange. Since it affects almost all canines, this skin illness is not unusual. It isn't harmful in most situations since their moms give it to them when they are still puppies. It can become an issue, though, if the dog's immune system is compromised by disease, malnutrition, or other potential causes of sickness. Mange may be quite uncomfortable if it becomes an issue since it itches a lot and can make a dog's life difficult. Depending on how long the dog has had demodectic mange, they typically lose a significant amount of hair. The face, particularly the area around the eyes, is where hair loss typically starts. From a few isolated places of hair loss to the disease spreading to numerous skin regions, it might worsen over time. The parasitic mites that infest the skin's surface are the source of the disorder. Numerous symptoms are brought on by the mites as they multiply and become embedded in the dog's skin. A compromised immune system and large scabs that develop on the skin's surface are other symptoms in addition to hair loss. Fortunately, demodectic mange cannot infect people, but it spreads rapidly from dog to dog. As a result, until the treatment is finished, every dog with mange must be kept in isolation. Topical therapy is often effective in treating localized infections, but more vigorous treatment, often oral or topical medications, is needed for broad infections. This wasn't always the case, but today veterinarians treat dogs with demodectic mange using a mix of lotions and steroids. Shampooing with specific cleaning shampoos that include benzoyl peroxide was once the mainstay of treatment for demodectic mange. Before dipping, this aids in opening and flushing the hair follicles. A potent pesticide known as amitraz was employed as the dip. However, this method is utilized less often these days because of the possible negative consequences of the treatment and the creation of safer, newer drugs. Sometimes secondary skin infections make the problem worse and necessitate antibiotic or shampoo therapy, particularly in dogs with global demodectic mange. Because dogs with skin infections frequently have very red, swollen skin, demodectic mange is commonly referred to as red mange. Unfortunately, Wolfgar's mange caused the veterinarian to conclude that he had this kind of issue. The illness must have been there for a long time, they told the pair. The reasoning for this finding was that since Huskies have two coats, it would take a long time for mites to remove fur from both coats. Fortunately, Wolfgar's conditions didn't require a lot of medical attention. To aid with coat restoration, the veterinarian sent the dog home with a medicated wash and ointment. Fleas were at least one issue the puppy didn't have. The couple brought Wolfgar back to their house after their visit to the veterinarian, but they kept wondering where the dog had come from all the way home. Because of the big scar on his rib cage and the way he responded to all males, they could tell he had been physically assaulted. They were both furious because they thought he had been abandoned on the streets. "People who do this to animals should have it done to them," they said during an interview. Seriously, animal abusers are one of the worst breeds of scum in existence. The pair looked via municipal records and the internet for someone who could have misplaced a husky, even though they had no idea of his past or any indication of who had previously had him. They were curious as to how someone could have allowed such a cute puppy to get into such a bad state. However, at that time, Wolfgar began to establish friendships with his new family. Wolfgar had to spend some time in isolation because of his mange, which needed to be properly treated before he could be mixed with the couple's other dog. However, in order to help the puppy feel completely at home, the couple bought him a bed and kennel. Because of how enclosed and secure the kennel felt, the dog appeared to like it, and the couple concluded he had previously been in one. The initial days spent with Wolfgar were difficult. He would moan at night since his skin condition prevented him from entering the bedroom. The pup obviously needed some comfort, but he had to stay in isolation for a few days in order to protect everyone's health. Fortunately, Wolfgar began to blend in with the family and was released from quarantine following 7 days of care, relaxation, and plenty of affection. Wolfgar's skin condition also started to get better as the days passed. His coat started to smooth out and his fur started to regrow. His bald areas were disappeared, and his skin also appeared to be less irritated. He appeared to be in better health than ever. However, the dog's mental health was also improving, in addition to his physical look. The dog no longer feared the spouse. In fact, he enjoyed playing with him and just getting plenty of attention and hugs from him. Wolfgar also enjoyed taking automobile rides. Being able to go on travels with his new parents was a unique gift for him. Even though he was still slender, he began gaining weight as a result of all the regular, healthful meals. Months passed, and Wolfgar gradually regained his strength and mental stability. In an attempt to shield his new family from any threats, he even developed a protective streak, guarding the property and barking at outsiders. Wolfgar was a vital member of the couple's family. The dog went from sleeping in his kennel at night to sleeping in his new owner's bed because his mange had cleared up and was no longer contagious. Stretching out and pushing his adoptive parents to the borders of the bed, he even appeared to dominate the most of it. The majority of the attention seems to go to his new father as well. Wolfgar had warmed up to the man and was now practically inseparable from him, despite his initial fear. Despite the difficult beginning to his existence, Wolfgar's new owners were glad to see such vitality in him. He has that light in his eyes again. In an interview, they stated, "There is undoubtedly a difference between now and then." Despite the pup's difficult history, Wolfgar has gradually overcome it and is now more happier with his new permanent family. Even his cute blue eyes may be used to mislead his adoptive parents into giving him more food or anything else he wants, demonstrating his ability to manipulate them to acquire what he wants. He thrives in his new habitat and enjoys sneaking into the kitchen to grab food from humans. His progress has been astounding. Despite the lengthy healing process, Wolfgar refused to let his past dictate his future. "We wouldn't have it any other way, and he now has a loving family." They stated, "We love him and all the fur he leaves on our clothes. He's a healthy, pampered dog." Animals in need of a second shot at life will always find loving homes because to folks like them. What a fantastic tale. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.